Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will allow for public comment under agenda items, which are the public hearings. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, please dial 1-408-650-3123 and enter access code 235-235-861. You can also join via the computer at https://global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. LaLiberty?
There we go. Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Wren? Mr. Wren is absent. Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Town Manager Julie Jacobson?
Yes.
Assistant Town Manager and CFO Ed Kazanovich?
Yes.
And Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski? I see Sharon, yes. We do have two public hearings tonight, and there is a call-in number for those of you who wish to speak during those public hearings. Is there a representative from Car Lots Incorporated joining us who will be speaking under this item?
Yes, you have Jason Pruitt and Amanda Cameron from Car Lots.
Thank you. When we get to that item, you will be recognized. Please note that the abutter notices that were mailed for the Chapter 61 hearing on the notice of intent to sell land at 50 Washington Street stated that the hearing would be held at 6 p.m. on January 25th. The hearing was posted for 6:15 p.m., so we will open the meeting at 6:15. We apologize for any inconvenience. Any abutter participating in this hearing can remain on the remote meeting until the hearing is opened at 6:15. Again, that's for the 61A land at 50 Washington Street. That hearing will begin at 6:15. Also, please note that I will be recusing myself from the public hearing on the notice of intent to sell land at 50 Washington Street, as I am an abutter and have been given guidance by the Ethics Commission to do so. Vice Chairman Tristan LaLiberty will chair the meeting for the purpose of that hearing. Also, please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. And please be reminded, members, that all votes will be taken in a roll call vote. We are now ready to begin the meeting. So we have a public hearing for Car Lots Inc., a motor vehicle class 2 license and auto repair license at 525 Washington Street. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. LaLiberty. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Berthium. By a roll call vote to open the hearing, Mr. LaLiberty?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The hearing is now opened. So we have Mr. Pruitt, is it? Yeah, you moved on my screen. You were over here a minute ago. Mr. Pruitt, welcome to the meeting. If you could just tell us a little bit about your intent and why you're before the Board of Selectmen tonight.
Sure. So Carlock has a signed lease for the property in front of you tonight. We're here for our Class 2 vehicle dealer license as well as the repair license to operate this location. We are new to this region, so you may not have heard of us, but Carlock is a young company. We're growing rapidly, and actually we just went public and are publicly traded on the NASDAQ as of late last week. So unlike other vehicle dealers, Carlock is a consignor, which means that we don't actually own our inventory. What we do is we provide sellers an opportunity to sell their vehicles through a retail channel when otherwise they would not be able to. Then buyers are able to buy these cars with the benefit of having the cars gone through an inspection process and having financing options available to them. And then, of course, the vehicles are sold at a great price. So we're a little bit different model than most dealers. And like I said, we are new to your area. We're excited to be coming to this region. And if you have any questions at all for us, we're happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. And Mr. Pruitt, are you the one that attended the DCG meeting?
Yes, Amanda and I attended that meeting as well.
Okay, so you're familiar with the conditions that they've recommended on the application.
Yes.
And are there any board comments or questions? Seeing none, just for the record, I see that an extensive list of abutters were notified for this hearing. Are there any abutters on this call tonight for the motor vehicle class 2 license and auto repair license at 525 Washington Street? Seeing no abutters and seeing that there is no comments or questions from board members, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there,
Second.
we have a motion from Mr. Berthium and a second by Mr. LaLiberty. By a roll call vote, Mr. LaLiberty,
Yes.
Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So the hearing is now closed. Is there a motion regarding the application before the board tonight?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the motor vehicle class 2 and auto repair license at 525 Washington Street, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of the departments, boards, commissions have been fulfilled. Said licenses are subject to all the conditions stated upon them. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the licenses and render them null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG to be placed on the licenses.
And do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Berthium and a second by Mr. LaLiberty. Is there any discussion under the motion? Seeing none, by a roll call vote, Mr. LaLiberty,
Yes.
Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you so much, and we wish you the best of luck in your new endeavors here. And welcome to Auburn.
Thank you.
so much. Thank
We
you.
appreciate your time.
So we still have about 3 minutes before we can open the next hearing, and I do see that Mr. Coakley is on the call for a simple name change. Could I have a motion to move up agenda item 4B?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to move up agenda item 4B, which is a change of corporate name, Auburn Webster Lodge of Elks 2118. By a roll call vote, Mr. LaLiberty,
Yes.
Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yeah.
and the chair votes yes. Mr. Coakley, you are up. I know that you've been before the board before, and this is a simple name, what should be a simple name change, but I guess it's gone back and forth a couple times because of previous names you've had. So have you been, and I know you've been working with Rachel. Do you want to add anything to this?
No, I just want to thank Rachel for the assistance. She's been very good to us and helped guide us through this matter. And we thought a simple name change, but it became a lot more complicated. But I think we've got everything straightened out right now.
Okay. And I probably should have done this at the start, but just as a disclosure, I am a member of the Auburn Webster Lodge of Elks 2118 and can take a fair and objective vote on this matter and have no financial interest in this license. Having said that, do members have any comments, questions for either the town manager or Mr. Coakley?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so what is the name going to be changed to? And should we make that as part of our motion?
So, go ahead, Mr. Coakley.
Well, it would be the same name that we just put on the application, which was Auburn Elks Lodge number 2118.
Yeah, it's Auburn Lodge number 2118.
So we're not doing anything, we don't have anything with Webster in there anymore?
No,
Auburn Lodge of Elks,
no. Auburn Lodge number 2118.
number 2118. Okay, and Madam Chair, if I could, do you want that as part of the motion?
I just want to glance at this paperwork. I would make the motion as written on our thing. A motion would be in order to approve the change of corporate name with the revised attached documents as requested by the ABCC.
Okay, thank you.
So are you making that motion as just read?
I can make that motion that we approve the change of corporate name with the revised application documents as requested by the ABCC.
Okay, and there's a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. LaLiberty. We have a motion by Mr. Berthium and a second by Mr. LaLiberty. Are there further questions or comments? Seeing none, by a roll call vote. Mr. LaLiberty,
Yes.
Mr. Berthium,
Yes?
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you, Mr. Coakley.
Thank you.
So the next agenda item is the public hearing for the notice of intent to sell land at 50 Washington Street. As previously mentioned, I am considered an abutter to this property, and I will now turn the gavel over to Mr. LaLiberty, who will let me know when the hearing is complete. Thank you.
All right. It's now after 6:15. So do I have a motion to open the hearing on the notice of intent to sell land at 50 Washington Street per Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 61, Section 8?
So moved.
Is
Second.
there a second? All right, by a roll call vote, Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
All right, Mr.
Did
Mr.
you say-
Berthium, Mr. Carpenter? Yeah. I went out of order. Mr. Berthium, Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
All right, and the chair votes yes. So the hearing will follow the procedure of presentation by the town manager, presentation by the proposed buyer, Eastland Partners, questions from board members, public comment, and comments from the board. So with that, I will turn things over to the town manager.
Through the chair, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and with a thumbs up, hopefully. Let's see. Let's see. There, can everybody see that? Okay, great. And everyone can hear me then? Great. So I'm going to walk you through this presentation, which really explains the process of selling land under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 61. So the process that's defined by the law is that I won't read it all. You can certainly see it, but for anyone who's watching any abutters, I want to make sure that I explain it. So the town received a notice of intent to sell land per Mass General Law, Chapter 61, Section 8, at 50 Washington Street. That letter was dated December 10th, and it was received by the town on December 14th, 2020. The seller is James G. Cutting and Laurel A. Post, and the buyer is 190 Washington, Auburn, LLC, for the purchase of approximately 30.5 acres of Chapter 61 land located at 50 Washington Street. The proposed use of the land is commercial, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And the purchase and sale agreement states that the purchase price is $450,000. Under the law, the notice was duly sent by certified mail to the Arbor Board of Selectmen, the Arbor Board of Assessors, the Arbor Planning Board, the Arbor Conservation Commission, and the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation. The Board of Selectmen, and I should note here that in addition to our Assistant Town Manager, Ed Kazanovich, tonight we have Seth Willard, who is our Chief Assessor. So if there are any questions related to the assessing after, we can go through that as well. Under the law, the Board of Selectmen have 120 days following the day after the date of deposit of the complete notice in the U.S. mail to waive, exercise, or assign its right of first refusal to purchase the land. The Board of Selectmen must therefore take a vote to waive, exercise, or assign its first refusal option. And it must do so within 120 days of the countdown that I just gave you, which would be you must act by April 10th. Now, to confuse it a little bit, and I hope I can explain this clearly, we did receive a new notice of intent to sell land today. And that, I'll go through the next slide in a moment, because our town council, upon review of the notice, determined that there were some deficiencies in the notice. So following a meeting that town council had with the attorneys for the buyer and the seller about a week ago, a new notice was received today. So we just received it today, so we haven't had an opportunity to go through all of it to make sure it's complete, but assuming it is complete, that would trigger a new start date to the 120-day period, which would, that start date would be January 22nd. And therefore, the new deadline for the selectmen to act would be May 22nd. All the timelines that I'm talking about tonight are based on that first notice, because when this presentation was prepared, and even as early this afternoon, I didn't have that new notice that came in. It really doesn't change anything because we're moving on process as planned, but it appears we may have a little bit more time if this second notice is indeed sufficient. So what we're talking about is property at 50 Washington Street, and I want to just show the public some maps. This is right on Route 20, 50 Washington Street. And as you can see to the right, it abuts the mobile home park, which is where Mrs. Goodrich is one of the abutters, and there may be abutters in there that may be on this call as well. I'll show you some other abutting properties. So right here, I labeled 50 Washington Street, so you can see where that property is. The proposed buyer is 190 Washington Street, Auburn LLC, and they also own 190 Washington Street, which is the property abutting it. Many of you may know this as the former Dartmouth parcel. So it was the Dartmouth property that went up to auction about a year and a half ago, perhaps maybe it was a year ago, and the property was purchased. I also want to note, we will be getting to that, but we have Clay Williams on the call with us tonight, who's also going to present. He is representing the buyer. So to continue to explain where this property is, everything in yellow, including this parcel in gray, are owned by the town. So just to give you an idea of where it stands, so this parcel in gray with the yellow outline is the parcel that immediately abuts 50 Washington. So you can see we share a common boundary in the back. The property up here is the Pappas Recreation Complex, is approximately right in here. We own land right off of Cutting Ave. And then over here to the right is the South Hold Road property that the town purchased coincidentally through Chapter 61A back in 2015. So as you can see, Washington Street is abuts some of our land, which then abuts more land that we have. And again, this is, I just tried to pull the screen out so you could see it a little bit better and tried to capture all of the land up on Southold Road, which is not exactly contiguous. The only contiguous parcel is right here. Pardon me. So under the law, the notice to sell has certain requirements. And I wanted to show the board what deficiencies were determined in the notice. Again, this could just be a matter of procedure, but we have to follow the law. So everything that you see in red was what was missing in the first notice, which is why we now have a second notice. So the notice must be accompanied by a statement of intent to sell. Again, that's in black, so we did receive that, which is why you'll see the green check mark there. The section in red is what we didn't have. We were not provided with a map drawn to the scale of the assessor's map. The next part, any notice of intent to sell must be accompanied by a certified copy of an executed P&S agreement. We have that, but the concern was that it shall be a bona fide offer as described below. And if you go to the next part of it, a bona fide offer under Mass General Law to purchase means an offer of good faith, not dependent upon potential changes in current zoning or contingencies or any conditions. So the P&S may have had some conditions in it that were of concern to town council and myself. The notice of intent shall be delivered by certified mail, which I just went over. They did do that. And a notarized affidavit that the landowner has mailed or delivered the notice shall be provided to the town. We actually did get that. That came in after the initial notice. It was not included as part of the notice, but we do have that now. The notice in the next two, we also have the notice to intent shall be considered duly mailed if it meets all of the requirements. And lastly, if the notice of intent to sell does not contain all the material as described above, then the town has 30 days after receipt to notify the landowner in writing that the notice is insufficient, which is what happened. So if you just look at a brief timeline here, December 10th was the first time the notice was put in the mail to us. So December 14th, we actually received it. We then immediately, per our own Town of Auburn Chapter 61 policy, we sent the notice of intent to Town Council for review. December 16th, we sent the entire notice and package to the Planning Board, Concom, Open Space Committees. And I should add Economic Development Committee on here as well. I apologize. And those committees were Planning Board, Concom, and Planning Board and Concom were already noticed. That is a requirement under the law, but we also sent it to Open Space and Economic Development seeking comments. On December 29th, Town Administration met with the buyer and the attorney to discuss the proposed sale and the conceptual reuse that you'll hear more about from Clay. On January 5th, Town Council sent a letter to me determining that the notice of intent had deficiencies. That same day, I forwarded that letter from Town Council to the attorney for the seller. It was within the 30 days to let them know that we identified deficiencies in the notice. On January 10th, the Open Space Committee voted not to recommend that the Board of Selectmen exercise its right to purchase. On January 11th, I presented the notice of intent at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, which was your last meeting. And at that meeting is when you agreed to set up the public hearing for this tonight. And it should be noted that this public hearing, we did notify the abutters within 500 feet of this. On January 12th, the Planning Board voted not to recommend the Board of Selectmen exercise its right to purchase. And on January 13th, we sent out the notices to the abutters for tonight's hearing. Also on January 13th was the date that Town Council met with the attorney for the seller and the attorney for the buyer to discuss these deficiencies, as I mentioned earlier. And I put here that the 120-day timeline will start once the new notice is mailed. And again, that was received today. And as long as it's complete, then today starts the 120-day countdown. On January 13th, the Conservation Commission met to discuss this item, and they did not take a vote. They instead said that they'd like to walk the property at their prior to the next meeting, which is this coming Wednesday, January 27th. I wrote to the attorney for the seller seeking authorization for the Conservation Commission to walk the site. and receive that immediately. So the Conservation Commission will be walking the site this Wednesday. Again, today, the town received the new notice of intent. Tonight is your hearing, and then again, this Wednesday would be the Conservation Commission. I also want to add, in the process of all this, when we sent this notice to all the department heads, we heard back from all the department heads, but for one, that there was absolutely, they could not think of any current or future use for this land. The police chief did write back that at some point, if the joint public safety facility was no longer a joint public safety facility, and we were looking at potentially a single police station, which we're not, that this land may possibly be able to hold that, but he was not suggesting that we purchase it, because right now that is not the plan. The plan is to move forward and pursue a joint facility, which cannot be located on this parcel. It's too far in the corner of one part of the town. So just to go through this quickly with the board, again, you have three options. You can exercise your right of first refusal, in which case, if you exercise it, which means you're going to purchase the land, you have to follow all the terms and conditions in the purchase and sale agreement. So you'd have to purchase it for $450,000. For the board to vote to do that, you need to have authorization to spend those funds. You can't take that vote without an authorization from town meeting. So if the board does decide to go forward and exercise its rights to purchase, we would have to set up a special town meeting and get authorization to spend. The second option is you could assign your right to a not-for-profit conservation organization for the purposes of maintaining the land as either forest, agricultural, or anything else under 61. We have not reached out to any of those agencies yet because we're waiting to see if the board is interested in assigning their right to have someone else purchase it and keep it for conservation. I will tell you, the last time we went through this process, the organization that we did reach out to did not have the funding in place at the time, and it wasn't a priority. I'm not saying that this wouldn't be, but it is difficult to find an organization that has the funds immediately on hand to purchase within this time frame. The third option is to waive your right of first refusal. If you waive it, the sale goes through as you see in the purchase and sale. So again, if you waive your right of first refusal, the buyer, who is the developer, has indicated that he's likely going to develop 6 acres of this parcel into commercial use, utilize an additional 2 acres that are down in the lower corner, right near between 190 Washington, where they own, and Route 20, to facilitate better access to their parcel at 190 Washington Street, because both of these parcels are challenging for development purposes. And the buyer has indicated that he will donate approximately 20 acres of the backland to the town that is not developable, which abuts other town-owned land. So that goes back to the map that I showed you. If the developer donates approximately 20 acres to the town, we will increase our open space that we have at that parcel behind this. And that section could not be developed anyway. The buyer has indicated that there is no definitive use at this time, as many options are under discussion, and you're going to see a presentation shortly on what some of those options are. If the town waives their right of first refusal, just want to point out some of the revenues that you would we would receive. So if the buyer develops 6 acres of this 30-acre parcel into commercial use, the revenues could potentially include, obviously, real estate taxes. That would be a definite. Auto excise taxes, depending on the use. Again, if for any reason it was residential, which is not the proposal here, if it was something to do with cars, where we were able to put an excise tax on the vehicles that were there, either through a business or a lot, that would be another potential revenue source. And again, if there's a sewer hookup, there'd be annual sewer revenues. Your one-time revenues would be your building permit fees for the development, your sewer connection fees, and the rollback tax paid to the town. So really quickly, I just want to go over the rollback tax calculation. So our chief assessor, Seth, who's on this call again, he calculated the rollback tax, and the rollback tax goes back 5 years whenever a Chapter 61 property is sold. So you take the value of the parcel, and you can see this for 17, 18, 19, 20, and then 21. And you look at the current assessed value which obviously the assessed value is reduced when it's a 61 property because it's tax exempt. So right now, it's valued at $2,991 right here. That's the Chapter 61 exemption that exempts it from value and therefore from taxes. So that if it was not ever a 61, Chapter 61, you go back for 5 years for the rollback upon the sale, and the town would get $92,274.86. So I'm almost done here. This last slide, and I absolutely can't read it, and I wrote it, so I'm sure you're all going to have a bit of a hard time seeing this yourselves. So basically, this is a timeline. Again, this is based on the notice of intent that came in on December 14th. It's not based on the new one. That new one's going to push everything out 5 weeks, but we did want to keep moving on this process because it's only fair, we feel, to the potential buyer and the seller to keep the process moving, even if our end date is extended because of the new notice. So basically, right now we're here. The board is having your hearing. Under option 1, we are going to suggest that you, at the end of tonight, vote to continue this hearing until February 8th. It will give the board members an opportunity to hear whatever is said tonight, think about it, and come back. And we'll also give the Conservation Commission time to take a look at the parcel and make their recommendation to you. On February 8th, if you continue the hearing and then close it, if you vote that you do not want to exercise your option and you want to waive your option, then that's the end of it. The process stops. That's option 1. If the board decides they want to exercise their right, then you're going to have to schedule a special town meeting. Now, initially, again, this is based on that first letter that came in. You'd have to schedule that special town meeting by March 16th. To be held on March 16th. So you'd have to take a vote on February 8th to hold the town meeting. That then carries this timeline out. We have to have an opportunity to open the warrant, close the warrant, develop the warrant, mail the warrant, and then hold the special town meeting on March 16th. Keep in mind that with this new notice, if that was the case, and if this new date of later in May, I think it was May 22nd is the date, then you're adding approximately 5 weeks to this date. So you're bringing it to maybe mid-April. Still not enough time to bring it to the annual town meeting. So under any circumstance, you would have to have a special town meeting to authorize or appropriate the funds to purchase that $450,000. So that is the timeline. I'm going to stop now, and through the chair, if you have any questions on this part of the presentation, I'm happy to answer them, and then we can turn it over to Clayton Williams, who can show the board some of the conceptual development options that the buyer would be looking at if indeed they purchase this land. So I leave it up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you want to go through with the next presentation, or you want to have any questions of the board members now.
I'll ask the board if they have any questions for the town manager at this time, and then we can always go back to after the presentation from Eastland Partners. So do members of the boards have any question for the town manager?
Mr. Chair, I
Mr.
do
Britton.
have a question regarding the look back on taxes. Yeah, on that particular slide that you just brought up. So it shows the look back and it roll back. It shows 92,000. Is that based on just the 6 acres that they're proposing to take and not the full 30 acres because they're proposing to donate the remainder back to the town?
No, this is based on the entire parcel of 30.5 acres.
Okay.
It is all currently in Chapter 61. So the taxes for the entire parcel, even though there's a commercial potential on that parcel, this is how it's calculated. It's calculated on the entire parcel, no matter what they donate back to the town.
Great, thank you.
All right. Do board members have any other questions right now?
Okay, so if not, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask Mike Marina, our IT director, to make Clay Williams a presenter. Clay, if you're ready.
All right, I'll turn that over to Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Clay Williams, representing 190 Washington LLC, or Eastland Partners. And let me go ahead and share my screen here. Can everybody see that? Great. So starting this presentation, we are going to look at some of the existing conditions on Washington Street, or Route 20. So directly across from the project site is 163 Washington, or the Lundgren Honda. The current valuation, according to the property card, is around $8.4 million. So the town is collecting just over 200 grand in tax revenue. It was recently renovated. Here's a view of that site from the street. You know, as you're driving along, you've got this big slope in front of there, which could potentially be reducing the value. Down the way, we have the Lundgren Motor Cars and High Octane Classics facility. A little bit of an older building, so it's got a slightly lower valuation. The town is collecting just under 50,000 here with 3.66 acres. Here is the new facility, the Lundgren Collision and another retail property. It's currently valued at just over 700,000. Obviously, that will go up once the property is finished and it is leased up. And lastly, we have the Patrick Mazda site, which is directly across from the 190 parcel, along with that little triangle over on that side. This site recently sold for 1.4 million, and there has been some extensive site work that's been going on for the past few months here, getting that ready for the car dealership. So here's another map similar to the one that Julie showed earlier, looking at Auburn's land holdings along with Eastland Partners. You know, the 50 Washington Street piece is obviously potential right now, depending on whether the town is going to exercise or waive its first right of refusal. So what could we potentially see here? As you know, was already kind of said, the current valuation of this property is just under $3,000 due to Chapter 61. There is significant fill that is needed. There's an encroachment from Winbrook Acres that you can see in the bottom right here. And then, like we've said already, there's a whole bunch of town conservation land and recreation land behind here. So what we've been talking about this whole time is somewhere around a 6-acre pad site. This site would be similar towards what we have received some approvals for over on 190. We would fill this site and then go to market with something known as a pad-ready development. We feel that it would be in the town's best interest to waive your first right of refusal. You'd be able to recoup years of that lost Chapter 61 tax revenue. We have already reached out to Winbrook Acres. Some representatives from our company attended a board meeting with them last week. And like it's already been said, you know, we're going to give the rest of the land to the town. It serves no use for us. And Eastland has donated hundreds of acres into conservation over its 30 years. So before we go on and talk about these potential uses, no final uses have been chosen here. We don't even own the property yet. After looking at what is currently existing on Washington Street, you know, it kind of gives us an idea along with current zoning of what could potentially go here. So the first thing that probably comes to mind would be a car dealer. There's already 2 of them on the street and they do tend to cluster. You know, the property across the street is just over 6 acres. So if that's valued at $8.5 million, maybe a brand new facility would be slightly more. So you could potentially be looking at, you know, over $215,000 in yearly tax revenue. You'd be right at grade with Route 20, so you wouldn't have that big riprap slope that the Honda dealership currently does. Another potential use would maybe be some sort of retail center. These tend to have a little bit higher valuations. So maybe the town would collect somewhere around $360,000 in yearly revenue. And then lastly, under current zoning, office uses are heavily encouraged. These tend to be valued slightly less than retail. So the town could be maybe looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 a year in real estate tax revenue. And that concludes my presentation on the potential tax implications of the town waiving its first right of refusal here. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions from the board or the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Do board members have any questions now for either the town manager or Mr. Williams on the presentation? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public or any abutters that have any comments or questions? All right. Seeing none. Do board members have any comments so far? No? All right. Well, since the Conservation Commission is going to be walking the site and holding their meeting this coming Wednesday, and then going to take a vote to recommend or not recommend the board's actions, I'd entertain a motion to continue the hearing until that would be our next meeting on February 8th.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add one thing before you finalize that vote? I'm sorry. I just want to add, in case anyone does raise this question, if the buyer donates, say, 20 acres back to the town, we're not going to be losing a lot of tax revenues. And I'll have Seth jump in if I'm not saying this right, or I'd like him to explain it. But the back acres don't have the value that the front acreage of 6 acres has that they're proposing to redevelop. So even if they did not donate the land back to the town, that 20 acres isn't going to generate a lot of tax revenues because it's not developable land. And through the chair, if I can just ask our assessor if I got that right. Seth, can you expound?
Yes, thanks, Julie. Yes, the backland is classified as that. It is called backland, and as such, it's got a valuation that's much lower, approximately 5,000 an acre. So if you take the 20 acres times 5,000, it might be roughly valued at 100,000, but it's not, obviously if it was owned by the town, it would be exempt. But all the value is in the primary lots or the frontage on the street on Route 20. So if Eastland Partners did go through with this transaction and donated the backland, it'd be pretty insignificant as far as valuation.
Great, thanks, Seth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me add that. I should have added that early in the presentation.
Sure, thank you. All right, so as I said, I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing until February 8th at our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing 450 Washington Street until February 8th at 6 p.m.
Mr. Carpenter has made a motion. Yep.
I'll second that for discussion.
All right. Second for discussion, Mr. Berthium.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I'm wondering, so we're talking about the Conservation Board going and doing a walkthrough there. Is that, are they going to come back and give us any more information than we already have to decide whether or not we want to deny our option to purchase the land? And certainly if Mr. Carpenter has any input on this, I don't know why we're waiting to do that. I'm not seeing any reason why we would want to buy the land and give up the revenue on that space. So, do we continue the hearing, or do we just vote on something tonight?
If I can, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carpenter.
We did hear from the town manager. We just got a new notice of intent that hasn't been gone through. So we need to make sure that we have gotten sufficient notice. So I would think that would be a legal issue with us voting one way or the other. And I do believe by law, we need to get the Conservation Commission's recommendation prior to us taking any action. As we know from the Dartmouth property, which is, was the golden mile for many years, for those of us who sat through numerous town meetings, we know that these properties have significant wetland issues. And, I welcome the fact that we're potentially going to add 20% of protected habitat area to an area that we've kind of encroached on and then created some issues with wildlife. So, I mean, to me, I think those are the two reasons why I would want to do that and continue it. And I feel that we would be legally obligated to do so. And I think we should let the abutters also get a chance to, this is the first time they're hearing anything. They haven't had any comment as of yet, but this is a major change to their neighborhood from a relatively agricultural, abutter to something much more traffic centric, which I'm not making a judgment positive or negative about the proposal. I'm just stating that, we should let them have a chance to process the information. I didn't have this presentation in my packet, so I'd like to go through it again myself just before, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I
Markham.
totally respect what Mr. Carpenter just said, and I'm happy to move forward and vote on the motion that was made.
All right, then by roll call vote, Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and the vice chair votes yes. It is unanimous. So we will reconvene with this public hearing on February 8th. Thank you, Mr. Williams, and thank you, Town Manager Julie Jacobson. I'm going to now turn things over back to our chair. Just send her a message.
While you're doing that, if I may, I just want to thank Clay Williams for participating, as well as any abutters who are here. And just to follow up with Mr. Carpenter, he's correct. The board members didn't see this tonight. We don't normally present the information that we're going to present at a public hearing in advance of the public hearing. We usually wait until that public hearing. So I apologize. I should have said that all along, that tonight's the first time that any of you are seeing this. Again, it's because we did think that you'd have another 2 weeks to absorb all the information. So I'm glad that the board did vote to continue this. I think that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jacobson, and thank you, Mr. Liberty, for handling that hearing. And thank you for the text message summoning me back. So moving on with the agenda, we have another presentation under public hearings and presentations on the proposed Library Goddard Park Pedestrian Bridge Project. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Jacobson, who can make the introductions. I see our library director is here, and I'm not sure who else is here for this item. So Mrs. Jacobson.
Thank you. Yep, if Mike Marino could, I think I'm still a presenter, so I'll bring up my next screen. But yes, we do have our library director, Jean Collins, on. And what we're sharing with you this evening is, let me just get the right one up here. Hold on. Let's see. Here we go. The presentation we're sharing with you this evening is the first time that we've presented this to the Board of Selectmen. We did present to the Library Board of Trustees on January 6th. And we've been working on this, or various components of this project, really for about 3 years. And I'm going to walk you through how we arrived at this full package of a proposed project, and all the different public processes that have led us to present this. So no simple way to say it. It's three different components, but they should all be taken together because they all complement each other: the library, the Goddard Park, and the pedestrian bridge project. So what we're going to show you tonight is a summary of this proposed project, how it relates to the approved plans and initiatives that have already taken place in town over the last 3 to 4 years, the estimated project cost, the proposed grant funding, and next steps. It is a proposed three-phased project. Three different pieces to this. Number one, install a large sunroom addition on the back of the library facility. If you can picture just a long glass, I think 16 by 79 is what we looked at, glassed in enclosure that would bump out the back wall of the library, which would then open up the space visually to the back part of the parcel of the library, as well as to the area over the dam and over toward the park. The second part would be implement various improvements to Goddard Park. We have a list of things that really need to be done there. And the third part of this is to construct a pedestrian bridge over the brook to physically link the library parcel with Goddard Park. And if you look at this picture that I included here, you can't get there from here. As the fire chief says, so many people have pulled into the parking lot behind the fire station, and they've gone to Goddard Park and they've looked over, and he will say that they look over longingly at the library and say, how do you get there? And the reality is you can't get there from there. You have to then drive back out, go down along Southwood Street, and come into the library. So there's no physical link between our two greatest municipal assets in Drury Square, which is the library and the fire station. There's no connection there to make them work in tandem with one another. Excuse me, and I said the fire station, the Goddard Park in between the fire station. I apologize. So the summary of the proposed project, and for the public listening, I'll just try to briefly say this. The overall vision that we've had for Drury Square is really to create a sense of downtown and enhance the economic value of the area and encourage shopping, living, mixed use, and visitors coming into town. And Goddard Park and the Auburn Library are really anchors in Drury Square, which provide opportunities for this type of civic engagement, outdoor programs, recreation, and educational activities. This proposed project, as I just mentioned, would create a physical link between Goddard Park and the library through the construction of a pedestrian bridge to span Dunn's Brook. This would also involve the improvement and enhancement to Goddard Park and provide new space at the library that visually connects with Goddard Park and provides an opportunity for outdoor programming and expanded indoor space at the library, which we're very excited about these options. These improvements will create a welcoming environment at the library and Goddard Park that will encourage visitors, residents, and surrounding businesses to utilize the park, and also finally provide easy access to the library from Goddard Park. By providing a direct access to and from the park and the library via a pedestrian bridge, the park can really be a huge asset to the library. They can do more interactive programs and events. They can take advantage of Auburn Pond, formerly called Mirror Lake, right at Goddard Park, because we want to clean up the park. We want to clean up the fountain. We want to make it working again. And there's a lot of great programs that we could run through the library to connect our residents and citizens with this tremendous asset that we have. Installing a glass sunroom at the back of the library is going to be a huge benefit to the library because it will provide additional indoor programming space, as well as create that connection to the outdoor space and adjoining Goddard Park via this pedestrian bridge. It will facilitate the library use of outside space that is currently underutilized, and I would say not utilized because it's not easily accessible. So the whole back part of the property, inside part of the property, is really not usable. The sunroom addition would also create a visual connection to Goddard Park in addition to this physical connection. And again, provide significant opportunities for programming. I want to point out, and at the end, if there are questions, the library director is here, but the library director has explained that if we add this addition to the back, that will enable her to move a lot of existing structures or furniture and furnishings inside the library, reallocate it and move it around so we can make better use of the interior space of the library now. And all of these things have been identified in the strategic plan, which I will show you in a moment. So these are the proposed plans how does this proposed project relate to approved plans that we've already gone through? So the economic development plan, the Drury Square plan, the vision plan, the master plan, the library strategic plan, all of them identify the potential to connect these two important community assets, Goddard Park and the library. The planning, vision, and design guidelines for Drury Square, and you can see the years that these were done. These have all been worked on by town administration and our residents since 2017. the Economic Development Plan, the Drury Square Village District Bylaw, the Master Plan, the Facade Improvement Program, the ADA Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan that we just finished, the suggested guidelines for Drury Square, the Wayfinding and Placemaking Initiative, the Auburn Public Library Strategic Plan, and the Transportation Improvement Plan. Keep in mind, the Auburn Street project, which is a $4.5 plus million project, is now underway. And this directly ties into that, which we'll show you, because of the improvements in Auburn, on Auburn Street and in Drury Square, will enhance Goddard Park and really helps hopefully complete the vision for Drury Square that we've all been working toward. The planning, vision, and design guidelines for Drury Square that were developed in 2017, I just wanted to show you that also referenced several times the desire and the actual benefit of connecting the library with Goddard Park and doing some improvements to Goddard Park. So I just want to show you, here are some of the views. So this is this top one. These are the views of Auburn Pond as seen from Goddard Park and the Auburn Library in the background looking toward Goddard Park. And of course, the monument to Goddard Rocket, which is in severe need of renovation. When you look at this plan, this came out of the design guidelines and the plan I just showed you. By land area, the largest property use is urban, public, institutional. In other words, the land that the town owns, which is on this chart, you can see it is this light purple color. So if you go right here, it's light purple. If you look at that, the town municipal parcels in Drury Square, there are quite a few of them. So it's the Auburn Library, Goddard Park, the Auburn Fire Rescue Department, as well as on the other side of Drury Square on this would be the high school. Again, this is just another picture that shows you the land that is owned by the town is in blue. Land owned by the post office right here, and this comes from the other plan, and that was identified for a specific reason in that plan, not so much for tonight, but this is the map that I used. And that privately owned land is in that orangey color. So the land ownership patterns are really useful in clarifying the type of uses. And in this case, over 50% of the area is owned by the town, including the high school, the fire headquarters, public library, and Goddard Park. So it gives you an idea of how important these municipal parcels are to the whole of Goddard Park. I pulled out a few things because I wanted you to see where this was identified in the planning, vision, and design guidelines. Specifically, it stated to improve Goddard Park to incorporate more public amenities, such as a canoe launch, kayaks, a walking trail around the pond, a new pedestrian bridge connecting to the library site. A covered bridge was suggested in one of our charrettes that was held for residents. More benches, a covered seating area, or a gazebo, which actually we did not have that at the time, 2017, but that is now in the plan for the Auburn Street improvements that are currently underway. The town should work to identify public and private grant opportunities to facilitate additional streetscape and park improvements, and restoration of the fountain in Goddard Park and the construction of a pedestrian bridge over the water connecting the library would be improvements that would enhance pedestrian connectivity and increase the attractiveness of the park. This would allow wayfinding and gateway design improvements to be introduced gradually, which would contribute to pedestrian comfort and a sense of identity in the district. So this was a vision back to 2017. Excerpts from the 2020 Library Strategic Plan also show that this is something that the public would support and is hoping that we will do in the future. Goal number 6 in the 2020 Library Strategic Plan that was just released last June is to maintain a safe, welcoming, comfortable, and inclusive facility and grounds. And I say and grounds because we haven't done a lot with the grounds and the outside of the library. And it's time that we turn our focus to doing that because it can enhance our programming at the library. Goal 6.1 was to optimize the interior and exterior spaces to meet a diverse, evolving operational and community needs. Another strategy was to expand the library's physical footprint to increase programming opportunities and flexibility, which the Sunroom edition would do. And then to connect the parcel to Goddard Park through a bridge, we could then expand activities and have certain activities outside. And a couple of these are just quotes that came from people who participated in the community survey. The library should be redesigned to highlight its proximity to and view of this lovely little pond, which is at the back of the library with currently little access and no viewer relationship to the library. The pond is so picturesque and practically no one will ever know it's there. This would also highlight Goddard Monument, which is also frequently overlooked. Redesigning the library to highlight its proximity to the pond and tying this into the whole redesign of Drury Square would create an incredibly beautiful and welcoming space, which people will utilize once they realize it's there and it's accessible. And then a couple of other comments: add a Zen garden outside with a bridge to Goddard Park. And again, make a Zen garden. So the public has absolutely been stating that they would like to see us do something to expand the use of the library, something to connect it to Goddard Park, and something that would connect it through a pedestrian bridge to other assets in Drury Square. The economic development plan also focused on these things: create a town center, create a walkable district, currently looking into utilizing more of the public areas. I won't go through all of the quotes on that. Excerpts from the master plan, again, I'm not going to go through them, but as you can see, so much of the master plan focused on Drury Square and enhancing Auburn Pond, cleaning up Auburn Pond, cleaning up Goddard Park, revitalizing the park, expanding the library, and putting in a pedestrian bridge. And likewise, the Drury Square Vision Plan had a lot of pieces of it that talked about connecting Goddard Park to the Arbor Mall area, connecting it, making more use of the pond, and connecting it to the library. Here it was suggested with a covered wooden bridge. So again, all of these plans that were all vetted by the community, all of these had several public hearings. Between all these plans, we probably had some 20 to 30 or more public hearings. And this vision was articulated by many of the participants in all of these community planning initiatives. So as a result of that, last summer, town administration used our technical assistance grant, DTLA, with the CMRPC to ask them to design some conceptual designs for enhancing, renovating Goddard Park, and creating a connection to the library. So we've been working on this since last summer. The drawings that the CMRPC have are very preliminary, so I just wanted to show you. So right here in the bottom right was just a preliminary. Obviously, this isn't a design, but this is just showing you that we would have a bike path potentially, or walking path around the park, around the whole parcel, and then potentially carry that over to some type of pedestrian bridge that goes over the water feature there. I just want to mention also that as of today, we've been in conversation with CMRPC. We have a 2021 technical assistance grant, and we're applying for continued assistance to CMRPC to help us further refine these plans for the pedestrian bridge and renovation of Goddard Park. So how does this tie into the Arbor Street reconstruction project? As you can see here, this is the project area for the reconstruction under Arbor Street and the beautification that's going to take place right near this area that we're talking about. This is just a snapshot of the plans from Mass DOT in Drury Square. And as you can see, there's a lot right this corner right here. Would bring you to the fire station. Here is where it's proposed to do additional landscaping, streetscaping, a potential gazebo, and tie it directly into Goddard Park. So we're going to have this beautiful area right here, a $5 million project, and we're still going to have Goddard Park that's in need of improvements. These are just showing you some of the parts of the streetscape project. And again, the proposed improvements that I just showed you, so you can see its proximity to Goddard Park, which is right here. And just a few more things that, just a reminder, these are some of the things that we're going to be doing through the Arbor Street reconstruction. Decorative lighting with the ability to hang flowers and signage, as well as hopefully we'll be able to now use our wayfinding project results that the board voted on in the last few months to start putting in signage and coordinated banners with the logo, enhancing, embracing the past and launching into the future. And these were the designs that the board had chosen from the wayfinding committee. So now to get to the cost. The total project cost of this three-phase initiative, again, the library addition, the pedestrian bridge, and the guarded park improvements is approximately $1 million. The town was just notified on Friday that our grant request to the Arthur and Martha Pappas Foundation was approved by the foundation in the amount of $505,000. That represents 50% of the total proposed project cost, which is actually $1,010,000. The foundation requires a match of at least 50% of the total project cost. So if our project cost does go up right now, that amount of 505 would remain, but we do have some, and I can turn to Ed when we get there, we do have some strategies in place to try to keep that cost within the proposed $1 million. The pedestrian bridge is really the most expensive element of all of this because you're spanning over a brook and it's not the same topography. So you've got some real engineering challenges with having to have the bridge, the stairs to the bridge raised on one side and flatter on the other side. So that's the most expensive part of it. The library room sunroom addition cost is estimated to be about $310,000. I want to point out this does not include doing any landscaping outside to the library. It was our hope that we would be able to work down the road with either another grant source or additional grants through this foundation or donations to a 501c3 Friends of the Library that is in the process of being established. So this is really just for the sunroom. The foundation for 79 by 16, the sunroom itself, and I say a Brady room style unit, we do have to go out to bid to this, but it will give you a concept of what it looks like, the delivery installation, and then we have to get flooring and shades in there. So that would be $310,000. The guarded park improvements, this is where we have some wiggle room through the chair to the board. We do have some wiggle room with guarded park because you can put a lot more money into the improvements or you could put less. So if the bridge project started to overrun what we were thinking, we could scale back on guarded park or we could phase it so we don't do it all at once. But right now, this is our plan was a $200,000 improvement for a 500-foot walkway, ornamental lights, new electric service, park benches, trash receptacles, relocate the model rocket, not this large one, the model rocket that's off to the side and really doesn't have any visual appeal to it, but it's really important to have it there. Install a fountain in the pond and replace the pumps at the rocket for this fountain as well. And again, that's $200,000. And the estimated cost of the bridge, again, this is the expensive. The construction of a bridge like that would be about $420,000. And the engineering, always 20% of a project cost is $80,000 for a total cost of $500,000. So the total project cost of the three components here, 310, 200, 500, and for a total of $1,010,000. And this is the last piece. What are our next steps? When I was putting this together to share with you, we were looking to seek approvals from the foundation for a $500,000 grant. We did receive those approvals on January 21. So I put that in here. If we proceed with the project, the grant is there and ready to be utilized. We would develop a financing plan for the remaining $510,000 cost, which is what Ed and I are working on right now. And we would undertake a public presentation and outreach effort, similar to what we're doing with you this evening, to show the public what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the value is of doing this project. We would then have to go to annual town meeting in May for approvals of the remaining $510,000 in cost. And then the project would require Planning Board and Conservation Commission approval. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I thought we could open it up to questions. Ed is certainly ready to talk about some of the ideas he has on financing and how we're going to get this done. But I would say we are incredibly excited at this opportunity. We were approached by the Pappas Foundation, Ed and I, back in the fall at some point, and they asked us what our priorities were in town and how we could tie in the mission of their foundation to some of the town's priorities. And of course, what really came to mind immediately was that the library board of trustees had just done a strategic plan. They have a solid plan outlining the need for additional programs, the need for additional space, the need to do outside things, the need to connect to the park. And all along, these other plans back to 2017 identified the need to do the same thing and renovate Goddard Park. So we proposed this to the foundation. We've had 3 or 4 meetings with members and trustees of the foundation. They rightly so grilled us, asked us a lot of great questions, and we are just thrilled that they came back Friday and said that if we move forward on this project, we have the approval for this grant of $505,000. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I can see that Mr. Kazanovich is ready to talk money.
Yes.
I am going to turn it over to Mr. Kazanovich, and then I'll open it up to board questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Julie, thank you for that presentation. Yeah, this is something that we're very excited about. I think from a financial perspective, there are a number of things that we are reviewing and considering. First and foremost, I just want to let the board members know that we're trying to come up with a financial plan that will minimize any impact to the residential or commercial taxpayer. So we're trying to structure a plan that will minimize that impact if possible. So some of the things we're currently looking at, there are a number of unexpended bond proceeds as a result of town meeting's action that appropriated money for capital improvements at the library. Those monies have already been borrowed and not spent. We're looking to convert some of that towards our share of this project of $500,000. Certainly, we're going to pursue any potential grant funding that may be available, whether it be from the state or any other sources. And certainly, we may hopefully be considered for a state earmark that may apply a portion of these funds towards our share. We can always potentially look at the use of our free cash, which is in great standing right now. We also have our stabilization account, which may be a consideration for a portion of this. And we could also go before a town meeting and ask for an authorization to borrow some funds and structure it in such a way that it would make financial sense to pay that over a period of time with a minimal impact on the operational side of the budget. So these are the things. We just received word, as Julie had indicated, Friday evening. So this is something new. So we're going to begin to pull the pieces together to try to come up with a strategic plan to fund our share of the project. So that's something we'll be working on hopefully over the course of the next couple of weeks, and we can bring something to you hopefully at your next meeting.
Great, thank you. Do board members have any questions, comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Berthium, go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. I'm sure I speak on behalf of the entire board for, to say that that's a wonderful gesture and offer that the Pappas Foundation made to us. And hopefully we can, put something together so that we can make sure we put good use to that money. But, they've always been so generous to this town. And I want to make sure that it goes on record tonight how appreciative we are of them with their donations.
Thank you, Mr. Berthium. I echo your sentiments. Is there anything else? So, Julie, we don't have to take any action on this tonight, just follow up at our next meeting.
Sorry, I muted. Yes, yes, we just wanted to give the board an opportunity. Again, like Eddie said, we just found out late Friday afternoon, early evening that this was a go with the foundation. So we did have to make some last minute changes to this presentation, but certainly worth every minute of having to do that. Yeah, we're not looking for a vote from the board yet. We will ultimately, as I said, we will be looking for a vote of the board to support this, because if we do proceed, which we would like to do, we would have a warrant on the town meeting article that we'd be looking for your support, as well as the finance committee. So, it is our hope, and I should have put it on here for next steps, that we'd like to present this to the Finance Committee as well. We're just not there yet because we want to get the whole plan together. And also, if you don't mind, if I can just ask if I know Jean Collins is participating this evening, the library director, just quickly ask Jean how this addition would help you with future programming and to kind of rearrange the inside of the library now and make better use of your space.
Sure, thanks, Julie. If you haven't been, well, if you've been in the library, if you want to get a visual, when you come into the library, the main doors, the sunroom will be all the way back. So for one thing, we don't have to replace those windows, so that saves a lot of money right there. So you'd really be walking straight back. So even though the dimensions sound like a long, narrow room, it's really not, because it's extending past the part of the library. So for that purpose, we can do, a seating area is really badly needed for, just for the public, but also for the easy use of room dividers. It's an 80-foot wide room, so you can easily divide up the room. You can have small presentations or large ones. Depending on how we go out to the backyard, we did have, I think the summer before, we did have a backyard program with high-flying dogs, and people loved being in the back because it's really beautiful. I'd taken some pictures before of, in different seasons, and it's really nice. So we could certainly have more room for programs and walking straight back. And again, like room dividers and various things could be put back there. And definitely, we could definitely use some more space. I'm happy to answer any questions. As you can see, Julie's, I'm as excited as as anybody. There aren't a lot of options for building on to the library, but this is one that I think would be very beneficial.
Looks like a great proposal. Thank you for your input. Do members have anything else?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Carpenter, yes, please go ahead.
through you to the manager and to the town accountant, are you going to have, I can't imagine you're going to have a finance plan in 2 weeks. So that's one thing that I worry about, how we are going to pay for it. I think it's a great plan. I'm as excited as all of you about it because I do use the library, and I do know that they are hard up for space, as well as being able to use outdoor and indoor is a wonderful option. And I don't know many libraries in our area that have that I've seen or experienced. So I think it's a great thing. But and what role will the library trustees have going forward as far as design and all that and that kind of, I know we mentioned the Friends group, but I just wasn't sure what the library trustees' role would be going forward.
And I'll answer the role of the trustees, and I'll turn to Ed for the financial plan. But for the library board of trustees, number one, we're hoping to get their full-fledged support and their advocacy for this project. As you know, under the charter, the library board of trustees is a policy-making group, but they're also, one of their major roles is to advocate on behalf of the library and identify the needs in the community. They've done a tremendous job with their strategic plan and the whole process that they went through that took well over a year. They really did a lot of effort to outreach into the community and find out what the needs of the community were and put it together in a well-written document identifying what the goals should be for the library. So the library board of trustees has already done a lot of the legwork on this, in that they've identified the needs of the community. Now town administration is responsible for implementation of that plan. So this is one way that we're implementing it. Moving forward, we're hoping, again, in addition to their support for the advocacy, that they would be, as they always are, interested in making suggestions for, various programs that we might want to consider in the future. And also, they are working very hard to get this 501c3 developed. They've been working on that for over a year. So when that happens, the 501c3 would be the vehicle that would potentially, the Friends of, raise additional funds to do some of the outside work. So when we brought this to the Library Board of Trustees on January 6th, they had some great ideas, and we're hoping that we can continue to get their input, and then those ideas would go into this project. As far as design, I would just say the proposed sunroom addition likely comes in one piece. So there's not a lot of work you can do with design of it because it's a single unit that gets brought in and put on the back of the library. So you can't change too much of it, although the library trustees had some great ideas as far as access to and from, security questions, as well as, where you'd want to place the door. But we really don't have a lot of work to design the actual addition to the library. But when it comes to the design of Goddard Park, there's a lot that we can be looking at. And we would be bringing this public presentations to the community to get some of their concepts nailed down. We already have a lot of concepts that came directly from the residents. So we're trying to put those concepts to a vision and a plan that everybody can see. And I return it to Ed for discussion about the financing plan, because we have been working on this for a couple of months already, but I'm going to turn it to
Thank you, Julian, and through the chair to Mr. Carpenter, because I know you raised this. Like Julie said, this is something that we started working on, or started thinking about when the foundation first indicated to both Julie and I that they were interested in doing something in Auburn. And so not only thinking about the funding aspects that I identified a little earlier, but even in terms of when this thing goes out to bid, we're thinking that in order to hold the finances in check, when this thing goes out to bid, if we bid it in such a way that there are add-alts, so certainly we can remove maybe some of the potential enhancements at Goddard Park, and phase it in over a period of time and exercise those add-alts or those aspects of the project that we may not be able to finance up front, but certainly with a long-term plan, we'd be able to accomplish that by identifying some future revenue sources or building it into our capital improvement plan. But we're hoping through a strategic financial plan that we'll be able to tackle this entire project all at once. And that's something that we will hopefully finalize in the next couple of weeks, and we can then update the board, hopefully your next meeting.
Thank you. If I can just ask one more question, Madam Chair.
Of course.
It's about the geese in the area. And I know they've made quite a mess in certain parts, so I guess that's, how do we control the geese situation that has kind of bedeviled part of the nice part of the outside library area?
Through the chair, that has always been a problem, Mr. Carpenter. You're right. That makes it very difficult. There's some really, I'll call innovative and unique mechanisms that some communities have come up with for geese that we will be exploring. And I don't want to say it now because someone might think I'm kind of crazy if I were to repeat some of these ideas. So I don't want to do that yet, but there are ways to do that. And I'm not talking about doing anything dangerous to the geese. I'm talking about some other non-violent, non-harmful mechanisms for having the geese move on to new territory, so to speak. But again, when you have a water feature, you are always going to have a problem with birds and geese. That is going to happen. But just by an example, certain things can be designed so that they, the backs of certain benches can be designed so that a bird wouldn't sit on them. Can happen with the fountain. There are some things you can do. There were some unique things that we're looking at, but we recognize that that's a problem, but we also don't want to stop the redevelopment of the park because of the geese. We just hopefully want to do something that will get them to move along to another lovely park somewhere. It's a great question.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Carpenter?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other members have any questions or comments? No, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Collins, for being here. If there's nothing else, we'll move on with the agenda. So the next item is under Board of Selectmen. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. Come on. Board of Selectmen general items, we have Dippin' Donuts, 913 Southbridge Street, an application for common victualer's license, and is the applicant here?
Yes,
Good evening, and thank you for your patience. We had a couple long presentations, but
good
we
evening.
appreciate your wait.
Thank
So,
you.
so go ahead and tell us a little bit about your plans and your project for Dippin' Donuts.
Okay, my name is Anduela Strebi, and I am here to present Dippin' Donut 913 Southbridge Street here in Auburn. It's been 4 years now I work in this place, in this store. It's a coffee store, and I like it. That's why I wanted to buy this store, and I applied to get a license from Board of Selectmen. And I'm not gonna do any renovation or changes in this store. I'm not gonna change anything. So everything is gonna be the same. Sorry, huh? Everything is gonna be the same. I like the people. I like everything here is so good in this area.
Okay.
I promise I'm gonna do my best.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
Thank
Do
you.
members have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I do know that you met with DCG and you went over, some of the recommendations that you need to provide an updated emergency contact with the police and fire department. If you intend to change any signs, you need to go through the building department. And
not-
you're gonna, go ahead.
No, I'm not gonna change any sign. That's why.
Okay, okay.
Sorry for my.
And just continuing working with the Board of Health to make sure that all the documents are, in the proper name for transfer of ownership.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and otherwise, I mean, what a great story, working there for 4 years and then having the opportunity.
Yes, since the first day, May 1st, 2017. I'm
Oh,
working here every day, yeah.
oh, congratulations, that's a great story. So if members have no questions or comments, is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Berthium.
I will make a motion that we approve the license for Dippin' Donuts 913 Southbridge Street for a common victual license, provided that all application requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, commissions have been fulfilled. Said license is subject to all the conditions stated upon it. Failure to comply with any and all the conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG to be placed on the license.
Thank you, and do I have a second?
A second.
We have a second from Mr. Liberty. Is there any comment or question under the motion? Seeing none, by a roll call vote. Mr. Liberty?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And thank you for your patience, and we wish you the best of luck with your new ownership of
Thank you so
Dippin'
much.
Donuts.
Thank you. Which is the next step? Sorry for my questions.
No, you can call the town manager's office, and they'll talk you through the rest of the process.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Best
Have a
of
nice
luck.
night. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've already taken care of change of corporate name for Auburn Webster Lodge 2118. We do have a gift acceptance in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, in the amount of $100 for the police department. It's an anonymous gift. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept with gratitude.
And second? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Carpenter, second by Mr. LaLiberte, by a roll call vote. Mr. LaLiberte?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you. We have no proclamations or recognitions. We've already taken care of the town manager item A, the library project. Mrs. Jacobson, do you have anything else?
I do, if you don't mind. I just want to make a mention to the board. Obviously, we're getting a lot of phone calls. I know you all are also about the vaccines. And I just want to say we're we're absolutely aware that the public is anxious, they're concerned, and they just want information. They just want to know when they can get their vaccines. The town has been working for several weeks, if not months now, to prepare to have a vaccine clinic at such time that vaccines are available to us. We went through a process back in November to have all of our EMT and paramedics certified to deliver the vaccine, to administer the vaccine. We also have some volunteers that have offered to administer the vaccine when we get it. And we have applied to the state to have a vaccine clinic at the senior center. We are waiting for final confirmation on that. And most importantly, we're waiting to see when we'll get the vaccine. We're reluctant to say when we're going to have the clinic, even though we do have plans in place. The minute we know we're going to have a vaccine, we're going to be able to roll out that clinic within an hour. We're prepared. We've purchased the refrigerators, the freezers. We have everything ready to go. We need the vaccine. So there was a process that we followed to get the vaccine. And once we get it, we have to follow the state's plan for administering the vaccine in the phases that are outlined by the state. And that plan does change frequently. So we're keeping up with that. But the most important thing we want to make the public aware of is we know that we need to get the vaccines out there. We want to do that for the Auburn community. We want to do that for residents and businesses. We've already administered vaccines to emergency management, first responders, and some of the healthcare workers in town received the vaccine on Friday. Those are all within the first phase. So as the next phase comes up and we actually get the vaccine in hand, we can start having a clinic. And again, we may not be able to even announce that until a day before, because that may be when we get the vaccine. And then when we get the vaccine, we have to use it quickly. There is a shelf life to all of this, and there's a lot of planning to all of this. So we are working on it. Just because nothing's been released doesn't mean that there isn't a plan in place. We have a great plan in place. We just need the final approvals, and most importantly, which we pretty much know we're good to go for the clinic. Most importantly, we need the vaccine. And there are delays. My understanding is, and I don't know this for sure, but my understanding is from a call today with the state, there are some delays on the federal level with getting some of the vaccine to the states. Once that gets worked out and the vaccine is distributed to those vaccine sites, we will get this underway. And again, it may be a very short notice. And again, it's going to follow the process that we have to follow through the state. So we want the public to know we are working on it. We're ready to go. And as soon as that vaccine is available to us for distribution, we'll be able to open our clinic. And our thought is to do it based on the numbers and based on how these phasing goes, probably either one day or at most 2 days a week. We've calculated how many people we can vaccine per hour. And knowing that ultimately our hope is that we can vaccine everybody who falls under all 3 phases and be able to do this for the entire community. I know our public health department wants me to make it clear to the public, if you are eligible for a vaccine and have an opportunity to get it somewhere else right now, we encourage you to do that. If this vaccine gets distributed to the pharmaceuticals, if it gets to CVS, Walgreens, if they get vaccine, if Harrington Hospital opens it up to the next phase, and you as a resident have an opportunity because you're eligible for it at that point to get it, we encourage you to do that. Don't wait for the town's clinic to open, because we are waiting for the vaccine that we can distribute. So if there is another opportunity for you, please take that opportunity. And then when we get the vaccine, we'll certainly make sure that we notify those who are next on the phase list.
Great, thank you. And you're right, we have been receiving lots of calls about, what we're doing and how we're assisting, especially the seniors of Auburn. So thank you for that update.
You're welcome. And I should add that when we do get the vaccine through the chair, we plan on having a clinic just for seniors. So, we have the plans in place. We're just ready to have someone tell us that we can start implementing it, but we will be having a clinic just for the seniors. We do not know the date of that. It all depends on when we get that vaccine.
Thank you. And do you have anything else for tonight?
No, I'm all set. Thank you for your time.
So we have no tabled items. We have no Board of Selectmen member items. Does anyone have anything they need to bring up tonight? Seeing none, we have no minutes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Berthium, a second by Mr. Liberty by a roll call vote. Mr. Liberty,
Yes.
Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good
Night,
meeting.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Sharon.
Sharon.
Bye, Jean.
Thank you,
Feel
everyone.
like- feel like it's